everyone, welcome back to this week's episode of Casual Watch Talk. You're joined by Sam and Chris. Chris, how have you been? Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Very good. Very good. It's been cold here and enjoying it and enjoying so far of 2022.
We're going to get this year off with a bang on the podcast. We've done a survey, so we're going to talk about those results soon. But why don't we kick off the new year with a wristwatch check?
All right. For, I think, most of the new year, I've been wearing just my Bell & Ross GMT on the bracelet.
Nice.
Like I said, it's been cold out. That's kind of a typical thing. And I don't know whether I'm shrinking. So this bracelet has only a couple of micro adjusts, and I haven't worn it in a really long time. And it's only just got the little 3-dot micro adjust.
Oh, yeah.
And it was like falling off my wrist for a week, and I was like, what is going on? And then I looked and I'm like, I'm in the middle. So apparently I'm shrinking. So, which is, I guess, good. Part of my New Year's resolution to just shrink.
Is that like a public service announcement? Risk shrinkage.
Right.
Know the dangers.
Right. Yeah. Well, or at least maybe it's an indicator that whatever I'm doing health-wise is working, or maybe not working. I don't know.
Yeah,
it's an indicator.
My wrist definitely fluctuates with the heat. There's no doubt about it. That's why I love that Christopher Ward bracelet, because it's got that ratchet on it. I'm wearing my Seiko speed timer. Still really liking it. I bought a Gas Bones custom-made Velcro strap for it. So if anybody's seen those Gas Bones straps, he hand makes them. And I don't think he hand stitches them. He uses a machine for it. But he actually makes these custom straps. And he only opens the store for, I think it's like 3 or 4 days a month. He gets such an influx of orders. And then he spends the rest of the month making them. He used to make really wide variety of them.
Okay.
Now he's pared it down to, I think there's like 4 or 5 models. He makes the classic. If you own an Omega Speedmaster, he makes one of the best versions of the pure Velcro strap, and he's got the proper stitched badge for it as well.
With all the NASA specimen indication identification.
Yeah,
that's cool.
He's a metalwork fabricator as well, so he can make custom. He calls it the hop-up buckle, but he can make custom hardware for the strap. So there's multiple choices. They're very comfortable, very well made. I'll flash up some pictures here. The reason I bought it for this speed timer was to try and visually bulk it out a little bit as well, because I've always been a little. The only thing I don't like about it is I wish it was slightly bigger, but this strap certainly does that. So it certainly bulks it out a little bit, so it gives it that visual. Also, it's very comfortable. I've never prolonged worn a Velcro strap on a watch since I think when I was about 18, 19. There was a surf brand of watches called Animal.
Right.
I don't know if it was a UK thing or maybe it was over here as well.
Yeah.
They were famous for their Velcro straps, so we always used to buy those aftermarket.
I remember, I don't remember the brand, but I definitely remember a surf brand, whatever it was here, Roxy or whatever it was called, back in the 80s and 90s, that was a Velcro strap.
Yeah, I've actually looked for them occasionally on eBay, because that's like a really nostalgia, because they had quite a distinctive kind of patterns to them and things like that.
Right.
But really liking this. So this is Gas Bone strap. I know our friend Luke is working on a Velcro strap. Or I think he might have even released it for his Frog Squad brand as well. Flash up a picture of that.
Saw some demo stuff that he was doing. That was kind of cool.
Have you ever worn a Velcro strap on a watch?
Only for a test on the Seiko Space Turtle that I did.
Oh yeah.
I actually found some blue Velcro and decided I could probably fabricate a sort of a simple strap for it. And tried it for a little bit. I don't know, just it's kind of like the Velcro thing. It's different. It doesn't doesn't work for me, but that's all right.
I remember those Animal ones because at the time I worked in a pub And my job was clear the lines in a pub. If anybody's worked in a bar, you know what I mean. We're basically clear through the beer lines at the night.
Mm-hmm.
And it used to be just covered in beer. And the watch straps, they would only last about 4 or 5 months because they would just stink. And you could never...
I know, right?
You could never get those ones because they used a really cheap polyester. Those ones do, not this Gas Bones ones.
Yeah, that's like... one time I had a buddy spill half a beer in the back of a car. He was like doing some like work on the speakers or something and spilled half a beer in the back of the car. Just burn it to the ground because that car smelled like beer forever. Just like it's over.
Well, this week Kris and I made a survey, and thank you everyone who gave us feedback about the podcast, because we will ask for occasional feedback in the Facebook group and things like that, but we actually laid it out what you guys really like about it, things that you want to change, what's the appropriate length, do you want us to do live streams and all of that, and we got a fantastic feedback. In fact, I'll leave the link in the description of this video as well if anybody else wants to give any additional feedback to us, and it's really going to shape the podcast this year.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, some cool takeaways. You know, Sam and I, we just do this for fun, and we want to enjoy it. But there gets to be a little bit of the like chasing the algorithm and trying to get the catchy titles and stuff. And this longer form content, this stuff like longer stuff, podcasts, it's not going to do well for the TikTok, 12 seconds of, I mean, maybe we should just like, I don't know, like grab a watch and light it on fire or something like every and just bury it in the middle of the episode. But stuff like that. So we're just trying to kind of figure out like, hey, what's fun that we can enjoy talking about, and we definitely enjoy the discussions and the banter, and you guys come up with some great topics and ideas. So if you have topics and ideas for the show, definitely drop them down in the comments, hit us up on Discord, hit us up on Facebook. We've got all the links down in the description.
Yeah, and we really appreciate it. We don't normally ask this, but we would really appreciate if you enjoy this video, hit that thumbs up, and if you enjoy the show in general, please subscribe. The thumbs up, I know all YouTubers say it, but it honestly, it really does help. YouTube class it as engagement. So if you do enjoy it, then give us a thumbs up. You can also hit the dislike if you don't enjoy it. They actually don't display the dislike anymore, but we still see it. So we'll know whether you like whether you
we'll
like
still
the
be right. We'll try not to be grumpy about it, but we still see it, which is it's fun. And I always like to say, like, if you learn anything, like if we or if you just enjoyed the show, if it's just a good you're on your commute or you're hanging out working on something, and you just kind of have us in the background, and just take 2 seconds when you close the window to give us the thumbs up. That'd be great.
Yeah, and you can give a thumbs up on Apple TV as well. I only worked that out the other day. If you press down on it, and because I watch a load on Apple TV. If you press down, same
with Roku. There's the Roku's got the little 3 dots on the left hand side of the video. So you push up, and then you get the little dots, and then you can hit the thumbs up. And I definitely make sure to do that because I want to support other content creators as well.
Yeah, and this isn't a new section that we're going to introduce. Tech Talk with Sam and Kris is not...
Yes, no. Or how to use your Roku is like, no, we're not doing that. That's not good. So, moving on.
The Facebook group's going from leaps and bounds, so thanks for everyone sharing your pictures over. It's great to see some of the collections that people have got. And then, Kris, you wanted to do a little special shout-out for the Discord.
Yeah, Discord has been going great. We have it now open to everyone, so... we did a little beta test, I want to say, at the end of last year where we had some people come in. As we mentioned in previous episodes, we've had in real person meets happen. We had bunch of folks meet up from the channel in real life, which is really cool. And the conversation is always fluid and fun, and we've got a couple places to talk about stuff, and it's really I enjoy it. I enjoy for those of us, especially a little more computer centric jobs, IT, etc., where we can just kind of keep a screen open and get our daily watch fix. It's enjoyable.
Shall we kick it off with a hit or miss for the start of this year? I'm actually going slightly against our survey results because a lot of the survey results, preferred us to speak about more of the affordable watches instead of the crazy expensive ones. But I just couldn't help myself with this one. So this will be maybe the last crazy expensive one that we go on about. But this was just huge news. And this was the new Omega Speedmaster that is going to be $81,000 US. It's easy to dismiss that price as being outrageous, but I'll give it a little few minutes of a pitch here of why at least Omega are justifying the cost. First of all, is it's using this, I'm going to say Canopus Gold or Canopus Gold. I've probably said that wrong. I've never heard it. Even Hodinkee in their article here are trying to work out how to spell it. Essentially, it's a gold alloy that Omega have made, which is 18-karat white gold with platinum, rhodium, and palladium. For our audio listeners, this looks like the classic Ed White version of the Speedmaster. It's got the 3-2-1 movement, which was all the rage last year, which was of course, the movement that they recreated from those original moon watches. And there's a couple of different variants. They are, with that movement, a lot more expensive, but this one's at a whole new height. They made one that was platinum last year that wasn't this price, although I don't think it came with a bracelet. But this is the new one. The other little pitch that I'll give for it here, Chris, before I get your opinion on it, is the dial is onyx, which is incredible. I mean, an onyx. If you've ever seen onyx, the shimmer, the black shine on it is incredible. So they've got this ultrasonic CNC machine, they're saying, and it's a 3-part dial that they're producing out of onyx. I guess, Chris, I'll get your opinion on this. Is this a step too far for the Speedmaster?
Woo. I mean, 81,000. So I find it very interesting. You described the gold composition. Now, I have definitely made the joke before that, it's sort of limited to natural resources. I mean, those 3 materials you mentioned, palladium, platinum, rhodium, like that, this watch is limited to natural resources. Like in the solar electric battery world that we are getting into here in the 20s, we are running out of those 3 things. So it does seem somewhat ironic. And I was thinking about this. I was like watching a couple of other YouTube things that were talking about running out of particular metals. Platinum wedding ring is what I have, right? So that, I don't even want to look at the price of platinum, because I think I would be stunned, because I know how much they were when we got married, but I mean, I can only imagine that now because of, like I said, because it's like industrial manufacturing is in short supply. We've got platinums in catalytic converters. So we've got kind of across the country here in the United States, we've got a rash of folks sawing catalytic converters out of Toyota Priuses to get the money for them. I'm gonna stay on the side of maybe bridge too far with this one, but they certainly check the box of it is limited to natural resources.
Yeah, and to be honest, even if it was solid platinum, I think a troy ounce of, well, let's just have a look. Let me just look at an actual troy ounce of platinum, a platinum coin. Here we go. So 1 troy ounce of 99. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, 974 a troy ounce of platinum. I imagine that at most there's 3 or 4 troy ounces maybe if you made the entire thing of platinum. And also it also doesn't say what they would never say the percentages.
Yeah, right. The mix, the alloy mix, who knows if it's like 3% of the material, and so then it's like of actual weight 0.00 . But another thing too is, much like diamonds, the industrial world, the industrial uses for diamonds and the gemstones separated a long time ago. So it wouldn't surprise me if metals kind of did the same thing, where in order to drill through rocks, in order to cut things, you need diamonds on the cutting surface. Well, they're not like mom's engagement ring diamonds. They're they're discolored. Their hardness is controlled, and a lot of them are manufactured now. So yeah, I guess maybe it was so. Yeah, there's our metallurgical discussion for today. So thank you for coming on Metallurgical Watch Talk, and
Well, this, and it's surprisingly, it's not limited edition. I'm sure it's limited production, but it's not limited edition. I suppose it's a hit if you're the ultimate Omega collector. And the only thing I'd say about it is that visually, it doesn't look that dissimilar from
I mean, the Onyx dial is cool, but like Omega's done some pretty cool dials, like step dials and surfaces, and so did they do? And they did. I think they did Did they do the vintage loom on it too?
No, they haven't. They haven't done.
Oh, okay. It is that same situation with your platinum. Where it's like until someone hands it to you, you don't really know. Like, this is not stainless steel. This is heavy duty. So it's like that. If you want to go for hidden wealth status, then there you go.
You're right. This is spot on stealth wealth, isn't it? Because even if people recognized it as a Speedmaster on your wrist, the few people that are going to recognize it, the majority are going to think it was the steel reproduction version a few years ago.
If they know what it is, like a dollar sign of around $5,000 is going to be in their head. Not a dollar sign of Kris's used car. So Sam, one of the things that I think when people get into watches, or we get into this hobby, we maybe struggle with or question is buying pre-owned or buying new, getting a good deal, and trying to find out, like, we all want a deal. We all want the best thing for our money. And right now, like most things, the watch world is fraught with danger as far as pricing is concerned, and as far as speculation. So I don't think we'll get too into any sort of speculation. But what I'd like to talk about is getting into your top watch, maybe used or pre-owned, and we can kind of go through and talk about what some of the top picks that have maybe come out in the last couple of years, and shop, and how you would shop for some of those.
Yeah, I think this is an interesting topic, especially if you're new into watches, because there's always that balance, isn't there? You want to get a good deal on a watch, and there's certainly some brands pre-owned that you get an amazing deal on, but then, as well as you sort of coming into the hobby, it's a minefield, isn't it? You want to make sure that you're getting especially a mechanical watch, you want to make sure that it works well. You want to make sure it's authentic, which, some of the fakes that you see online, they look almost identical to the untrained eye, to the watch that they're a replica of. And then you've got the homage watches as well that are also very similar. I saw a load of Doxa homage watches on Chrono 24 that look identical, and so there's this whole, like, where is, because you're spending, especially on some of the ones that I picked here, very expensive, aren't they? So it's like a trade-off, isn't it? Do you go to a boutique and buy it new? And certainly those boutiques have been tightening up their discounts, and certainly on a Rolex you would never get a discount from a boutique.
Yeah. Some of the things to look out for, I think, everybody talks about service costs, or like what movements in it, and like what movements are good. And I see these pop up on watch forums all the time, should I go for this sort of thing. And I think an easy way to think about it is, if it has a standard Swiss movement that is in hundreds of other watches, stop thinking about service costs. Don't worry about it. Like, if it is an ETA 2892 in it, like, sure, whatever. Like, you're a watchmaker at the nearest city has parts for that in a drawer, for sure.
Yeah, but it's also sometimes tricky as well to know that, isn't there? Because a lot of
Right.
brands take the ETA and either just rename it and it's a straight ETA, or they heavily modify the ETA. Hamilton's an example.
Yeah. Well, I think they've done a pretty good job of letting you know that it's based on. So if you see based on, maybe a good indication that, you know, that they've you say modified, but like I think more often it's decorated. So they'll get an ETA movement that is built to their specifications, and they'll put in a rotor that's decorated that says Hamilton, that says Bell and Ross, that says etc. But the guts of the you know, the main gear train out of an ETA is going to be identical. There are not many companies in the, let's say, $1,000 to $5,000 price point that are going to be modifying, you know, that are going to be doing any sort of heavy modification to the gear train. It's going to be, you know, very similar. So that's kind of the first thing. There are some caveats there, and I want to call out Zinn, because Zinn and some of the German tool watches have some technology that they've added to the watch. Zinn in particular has that capsule. Have you seen that on the sides of some of their new flight watches?
Yeah, so this is the one that shows you whether it's had water ingress in it or not.
Correct. Yeah, it's got some material in it that basically turns blue to let you know that moisture has come into the case. The thing about it is that just naturally being exposed to the air, and every time you open up the crown and, you know, a little air gets in there, and you know, whatever atmosphere you're at, and if you're like Sam in Florida where it's 970% humidity, over time that's just going to turn blue. It's just going to say that there's water in it. So that little capsule is like $300, and then sending it out to be replaced, additional shipping, not to mention that some of the chronographs that have that for Zinn are, you know, couple $1,000. So you're insuring a $2,800 watch that you're sending either across the country or across to Germany, to get them to replace this little capsule, because those are types of things that your local watchmaker are not going to have available in a drawer. Not to scare you off, but these are just sort of some of the things that you can look out for when shopping for used and thinking about things like service costs. Now, Sam, I think you've had a couple watches serviced. You had that Seiko that you sent out. You had the Omega.
Yeah, the only two watches I've had, one was a service return actually for Seiko, so it wasn't like a proper service. It was, I made a whole video on that, but it was actually, that's when I found out that Seiko's international warranty isn't international. It's international and the US. So because I'd bought it direct from Japan, the US service center wouldn't service it, even though it was brand new and well within its warranty. So that's a whole separate topic. But yeah, the Omega servicing, which I was surprised that it was, I guess, as good value as it was. It was, my Omega at the time was, I think I'd owned it for 12 years, and I think it was around about maybe close to 20 years old, I think. It was from 1996 at the time. And essentially, I'd bought it knowing that it had never been serviced. It had no service record with it, and I wore it for 12 years, and it was absolutely fine. I ended up getting it on a time grapher, and it was a little bit all over the place. So a friend of the show, Josh Wolf, who Wolf from Wolf Vintage Watches, a little plug for him, he's been on the show before. He told me that really it's about time to get it serviced. Now, in my mind, I thought that there was, whenever I thought about servicing a watch, I thought, okay, you've got to get they say this about a car, don't they? That you've got to get a car regularly serviced to maintain it. And when you take your car in for a service, and say you haven't serviced it for a long time and there's fault with it, you're normally paying the service cost plus the parts costs, aren't you? So they're like, oh, your transmission needs replacing or whatever. So I thought that the watch service might be like that. So they're going to service the watch, but then they're going to quote me for any parts that are broken. In fact, that's not what they do. They essentially just serviced it, replaced all of the parts that needed replacing, with the exception of the clasp, which I did have to pay for. But all of the internal parts that they replaced, I didn't have to pay for. And that made me rethink about servicing. I don't know if this is just particular to Omega, but it made me more confident in owning an Omega, because you when you do get it serviced, they just replace what's broken. So you don't have to feel this pressure of, oh, I'm going to have to save up for a service every 3 to 5 years. Essentially, you just need to wait for the watch, in my opinion, to just start performing badly.
I have that same view. I have having had watches open and movements and purchasing pre-owned, etc. It's very important to capture like a snapshot of how it's running when you first get it, whether it's new or whether it's, used. I mean, that's always like that's always the nervous part. When I find a chronograph or a awesome 3-hand watch mechanical watch on eBay, first thing is that's going on a time grapher so I can capture sort of what's happening.
Isn't it more important to know not necessarily that the watch is running fast or slow, but it's to do with the beat error, isn't it? Because a watch, if it's got a very low beat error, that means it's performing correctly, and you could just regulate the fast and the slow out. But it's actually the beat error you're looking for, not if it's the watch is losing or gaining.
Right. Yeah. Think of the beat error, the beat error, or the strength of the tick as the watch goes through its movement. So if it's if it's off in some way, the distance between the tick and the talk, and then the amplitude is really the power that spring has in it. So if, completely random example, if you have a Seiko that has around 300 amplitude, that's great, because that means that the balance spring is swinging all the way almost 300 degrees and coming back, and it shows that there's enough power for that in the drivetrain to be wound that much. And so, truly, it's a mechanical heartbeat, and it can tell you everything that you need to know about what's going on. So if the drivetrain is all gummed up and the mainspring is worn out and the barrel is all covered in crud, well, there's no way when that turns is it going to transmit the correct amount of energy to make the balance back and forth. So for those that don't have a time grapher and they're, and you're new to the hobby, find a local watchmaker that you can just have them check it out, and start a conversation. It shouldn't be, I don't think it should be a charge. That's how I would expect, and I'm in a sort of metropolitan city area where you would think that if you walked in with a watch that you'd be charged for it no matter what. Much like a car service, like if you drive into the garage, you're going to be charged for it, kind of thing. But I think just having a watchmaker put it on a time grapher and just sort of giving you an evaluation, like his experience, I found is going to be it's going to be super helpful in a situation like this.
Yeah, and if somebody charges you any more than if somebody charges you anything, or it's more than $200 to put it on a time grapher, you can easily buy a time grapher for like 160, I think, a decent one.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a billion YouTube videos on how to sort of understand the results and what it's what it's telling you. If it's a nice straight line and it's plus or minus 10 seconds, then your watch is totally fine. If it's a wavy line, if they've got sort of errors, if it's all over the place, then it's then you're in trouble. The next big thing is waterproof, water resistance. Water is anything somewhat used, are you going to feel confident jumping in the pool with it? And again, the watchmaker, this if you buy something used, this should be just a check. Hey, I just want to check to make sure the seals are good, everything's closed up. The further you get away from what I kind of call the modern era, from the 1980s, the further away you get from that, you get into watches from the 70s, 60s, 50s, 40s. I mean, especially 50s and 40s. Those watches they were never designed to be completely waterproof. We're talking, a modern equivalent of like 10 atmospheres. So just enough of a feather gasket that was made of natural rubber between the crown and the stem. So all of those natural materials, rubbers and oils and stuff, those have since dried up 15 years ago. Everything from 1990 on, you're pretty confident that you're getting like nitrile, synthetic rubbers, synthetic gaskets, synthetic lubricants. So even your Omega from that generation, I agree. It's just wear it until it needs to be sent for a repair.
Yeah, that's what I always worry about, is the seals of the watches, because even if the case has been open a few times, even if it's a modern-ish watch, there's still that compression there, isn't it? I think the seals are meant to be, they're only as good as, I think, the first time that they're ever compressed, aren't they? I think if you open it up, then the seals if I buy a second used pre-owned watch, that is one of the things that I worry about, is whether it's waterproof or not. Not if it was made in the last 10 years, I wouldn't worry about it. But if I was buying something from the 80s, 90s, even early 2000s, I would. And the gaskets are, as you get more confident with your watches, the gaskets are something that are easily sourced, and also you can replace them yourself as you get more confident with them, I think. But except with the exception of the one in the crown, which is tricky to do on your own. I think the reverse of the case is easier.
Yeah. So nowadays, older watchmakers will have that watch torture device full of water with like a lever that like dunks, the dunk tank. Nowadays, the modern service centers, water never touches it. It basically goes under pressure, and then they take a laser and look at the surface of the sapphire or the crystal, whether it's poly or sapphire. And so it looks at the surface of the crystal, and then if the watch is taking pressure, that will change. I mean, it will move. Glass is flexible to some degree, and so with a laser it can measure sort of how flexible, if the case is waterproof. So it doesn't even have to touch water. Like I say, modern, take it to someone. But I really think that the value is outstanding. I often see 20 to 30% off just for being used. So Longines, Breitling, some Zinn, but that's a little harder because those are not sold directly to like Macy's here in the United States. Omega, maybe less, a little more, hold their value a little more. But I would say a good rule of thumb would be, maybe it would be a 30% of taking so you went and bought, $3,000 watch.
Yeah, and I'd say certainly with those brands that you mentioned as well, like Breitling, Omega, especially, I know I always flirt with the idea of buying an Aquaterra at one time,
Hmm.
at some time, and I know that you can get very good pre-owned prices on them, but I always think a good idea is to also look on the grey market, so like Joma Shop, for example, for
Hmm.
a Breitling or for an Omega, and the reason being, even if it's just to compare prices, because with a pre-owned watch, unless you're getting it from like Crown and Caliber or Bob's Watches or one of those other where they offer a warranty with the
Hmm.
watch and you will pay a little bit more, that if you're buying it off some of the sites that don't offer a warranty with them because it's pre-owned,
Hmm.
then a lot of the grey market, they don't offer the manufacturer's warranty. They'll offer their own warranty with it, but you're rolling the dice anyway if you're buying pre-owned on whether it has a warranty or not. So you might as well look at because you might be surprised with
Hmm.
the difference that the grey market sometimes is even better
Yeah.
than
Yeah.
pre-owned.
And at this point, if you're in this part of the show and in this episode, you probably have heard of gray market. And so the quick summary is just about every retail sales organization that has fashion type items at some point needs to move through stock, so that they need to get rid of the stuff that hasn't been selling and get new stock into the store. This is the same way with t-shirts and fashion as it is with watches. So those watches then go off to another seller that are heavily discounted. The manufacturer just pretends that it didn't happen, but it's very much a part of the ecosystem of how this all works. So I was saying, if you start with something that was MSRP of $3,000 and used, I would expect to be $2,100 to start looking for that price, depending on brand, again, depending on a lot of factors. And I've seen at least 15-20% on gray market stuff. So good to check out. I think it is, if you can, I always think you should buy a new one versus a used one, if you can. So if I was looking for a Super Ocean 2, which Sam and I have had our eye on, and I just saw another video on it, and I'm like, maybe I'm back. Maybe I will redeem my diver watch character in 2022. If you take a look at those prices of retail, and what the difference is, 15-20% definitely can be had for something like that. What's nice with the Breitling is they're all chronometer certified, so that I think like your base is even better. Like you're getting a much, it's been touched, it's been regulated, it's super accurate. So I would expect a worn one or a used one to still be totally fine in 5+ years. Even if it was 5-6 years old, I would expect it to come in totally fine.
Yeah, exactly.
So shopping for used watches, can be scary, but I think the amount of money that you can save, and like I said, if you just go do a little bit of research and maybe go with something a little more modern. If you're looking at anything newer than like 1990, I think you're totally safe to do this. It's and anything with a standard movement that they made millions of, I think you're in much better shape. You don't have to fret about service costs. And for me, the switch is anything pre 1980 and anything that was like a delicate dress watch. So any of the early Omegas, like the 1960s Omegas, are gorgeous. Like I'd love to have a 60s Omega Seamaster, but the who knows? You'd have to really do your research, really dig into what's inside that, really send it off to have a service.
Just in summary here, it might be worth talking about we've talked about the positives and queries around buying pre-owned watches, it might be interesting to talk about like the different places versus the risk versus reward for buying from different places, I would say. So
Okay.
I know certainly, I think the most in my mind, the most risk, and I mean for new collectors here, because for seasoned collectors, you certainly find your way around. But I would say, I don't know about you, Chris, but I would say the one that's the biggest risk, but is the biggest reward. So you're taking the biggest risk, but you're probably going to get the best deal, is to go on forums and search for watches, because it just involves doing a lot more research, who you're buying it off, what type of forum it is, and so on. That's one way you really have to educate yourself. The payoff, obviously, is that you're going to get probably the best deal of anywhere is on a forum.
Right.
The other risk, depending on cost, is, well, I mean, the riskiest I would say is something like Facebook Marketplace. But
for most things.
For most things, but we'll leave that, because we've never talked about Facebook Marketplace before, or Craigslist is another one I would say is quite a risk. But eBay, I would say, is a risk for anything that's less than $2,000, because again, you have to do your research. But anything above $2,000, you get that authenticity guarantee, which still shoulders some risk with it, I would say, because they're guaranteeing that the watch is authentic to what the model and the brand is. It's not a counterfeit watch, but they are not authenticating, does the watch work, or
does it keep good time? Yeah, are the seals good? Yeah, exactly. And to your point with on forums, those forum sellers are not, they are saving money because they are not paying any of the listing fees over on eBay, and they're brutal. And then the listing fees over on a Chrono 24 and as you get maybe into the top of the $4,000 or $5,000 range, then it becomes more important that it's a verified seller, that the watch has been verified, that it's that you've got an escrow to like handle your money, and you maybe get into a Chrono 24.
I would say next up the list from eBay is Chrono 24. The advantages over eBay are that there's escrow. The money is held in an escrow, so you actually get hands on the watch yourself before the money is released, and you confirm it. But they don't. They're not a middleman. They're not helping you out as a new seller to verify it. The other thing as well, I would say, is an advantage of Chrono 24, and there's other ones around this, like Chronex and a few others, is where you can actually see feedback from other buyers and they're all watch related. Whereas eBay, you can obviously, I mean, I've got 1,000 feedback, but probably only 50 of that is, well, probably much less. Only 20 is actually from watch sales. I mean, you'll see feedback from me selling, comic books and all sorts of stuff. So, and then you kind of less risk, but always is going to be more expensive, is the likes of Bob's Watches, Crown and Caliber, where they're actually physically taking the watch in themselves. They're inspecting it, they're making sure it runs properly, and then they're offering their own guarantee with it as well, typically a year guarantee or whatever. So even though you are paying you're paying more for the watch for sure than what you would find on eBay, but you've got that peace of mind as a new watch collector. You're assuming less of the risk.
And I find, again, in the price point of in this like maybe $1,000 to $3,000 price point, I find that once you get up into a boutique reseller like a Bob's Watches, or someone who's like gone over the movement, gone over the watch, just done a service, it's listed. When you get to that with any of the modern watches, you're almost at the price of a new one.
Yeah, exactly.
And
sometimes,
so I mean, I've seen some brands and some watches sort of hit that, and if the delta between a certified, pre-owned, immaculate condition, we confirmed it's on sale, they'll escrow your money, and it's a safe transaction, well, that all costs money. And so if the delta between that and a brand new one in that price point is, I don't know, maybe $400 or $500, I'd just go get a new one. I just go down and have the AD experience and, and say, hey, I'm just going to go pick up a new one. And you'd be surprised if, it can't hurt to ask to get a few dollars off, even a new one.
Well, that's been a really interesting discussion. So we've covered there, especially going into the new year when people are thinking about pre-owned watches, kind of some of the things around servicing, some of the things to look out for, and perhaps areas where we've had experience of buying and selling watches. So I think that's been a pretty interesting discussion, and let us know in the comments section down below, or over on the Discord if you've got any questions about that. Happy New Year to everyone, and we will see you next time on Casual Watch Talk. Thanks, guys. Bye.